Moirai Veraboisai, Moirai Veraboisai. This is Yehuda Levin on this special pre-election program that we usually not heard at this time, but this is part two of our Thursday night get-together. You can usually hear our program 11 or 11, just from 11 to 12, but tonight, for those of you who are intelligent, sophisticated, sensitive enough that you made the effort to stay up, there's another exciting, dynamic hour where with 98% of my brain tied behind Rush Limbaugh's back, just to make it understandable to the public, your humble host, Yehuda Levin, will give you more hashkafa, more insight, more in-depth analysis in this 1 hour than you will get from an entire year of attending Aguda dinners and conventions and speeches and everything else. Okay? So here we go. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Let's get moving. I want to discuss with you Flatbush Mama. Some people were upset. What are you picking on this nice, sweet Jewish girl? She covers everything she's supposed to cover. She's sneeristic. Yeah, here, I'm sure it's all covered in Yavada. And she's very sneeristic. Yeah, I'm sure her dresses are very roomy. And sneers is just, of course, covering the knees and below the elbow. So Yavada, she sneers with tightness and garish colors and getting on with your husband on the internet and making all kinds of litzanis and jumping into a pool and all this other stuff, the yaitzanis, as opposed to kol kavod basmach pnim avada. That sneers according to the current crowd of the same people who go with the tichel 3/4 of the way up like this, and they go pull back and they go to buy sushi and pomegranate. Of course, for them, she's very sneeristic, and of course, they're the arbiters of what sneeristic. As what sneers. I'm going to say, so the kindness, what do you want from her? She can run for office, and this very intelligent woman wrote a letter in the Jewish press. They published letters to the editor. Yehuda Levin ran, and he loses all the time, and nobody stopped him from running. Why shouldn't she? There's a moral equivalency, and it's a free country. And what's he attacking her for? She's a fine woman. Yeah, and everything else is a very deep intellectual counter arguments to the complaints that I wrote in my article in the Jewish press, leading or misleading about what she's doing. But she's the gift that continues to give and give and give and give. In other words, it's come to a state where it's like they asked this Choshev Rav, who is in the Polish parliament, Shzhem, however you pronounce it, and they asked, how do you know, you're busy sitting and learning, how do you know all the issues, how to vote? He says, I look at the Freie Yid, the free thinker, the maskil, who's a member of the same august body. I see how he votes, and I realize that you got to vote the opposite. Now, it's a cute answer, and it's not so budget like that, but there's a point over here. Miss Flatbush Mama, the 31-year-old who wants to act like a 16-year-old and wants us to call her a girl, which I refuse to do. She's no girl. She's a lady. No, she's not a lady, but she is a mama. Okay? She's the gift that keeps on giving, because every couple of days she does something which is counterintuitive and flies in the face of Yiddishkeit. And so I don't look at her sites. I don't spend time looking at her site. I'm not a subscriber. I'm not a follower. People send me what she's doing because she's offending a fair amount of people. So we're going to concentrate this evening for a few minutes on two of the things that she did. Recently, there was a post of a video that somebody made, but she did post it, I think, on her site. She didn't make the video. It seems she was hired or asked to attend a certain type of meeting where people get in touch with with sensitive things in their life as a way of therapy, coming together. Maybe it's like Alcoholics Anonymous type meeting or a Facebook meeting, whatever kind of meeting it was. I don't know if it was I don't know what kind of meeting it was. Maybe was it an essay meeting? I don't know. I don't know what it was. But the point over here is that she was supposed to be the adjusting chizik But organizer decided, the way I hear the story, to ask her to speak. She didn't have much warning. She had to get up and say something. And she is a person who knows how to public speak, and she's an intelligent person, and she's academically accomplished. And if she writes her own stuff, she's an excellent writer. She knows how to use psychobabble and claptrap and everything else also to leave things murky, as you'll soon see. So here's the deal. So she gets up and she says like this. This is for mature audiences, and that's why this is playing at 1 o'clock in the morning. This is going to be on the hotline. By the way, the hotline number is very important. Please give over the hotline number to all your friends and associates. The hotline number, and you can see this in videos anytime they're archived at rabbi.zone. The hotline number is 641-715-3000, 3900, I'm sorry. 641-715-3900, extension 247656. Again, extension 247656. Spread it, tell people at Yisrael, tell people in Lakewood. Please be a shutzer from what we're trying to do. So Flatbush Mama gets up and she says, when I was in the 7th grade, I was starting to develop, etc., physically, and all of a sudden I felt I had a crush on another girl in my class, my 7th grade class. So I was acting out a little. I was sitting on the couch on Shabbos night with my mother. She says, well, you act like this. And I opened up to my mother. I said, I'm very concerned if I'm normal or not. I have a crush on this 7th grade girl. I can't stop thinking about her, whatever she said. And according to what she said in her presentation, her mother says, oh, Adina, this is perfectly normal. You're developing. You're becoming aware of yourself in a intimate nature, in an intimate way, because you're developing and things are changing by you. It is perfectly normal, and you don't have to be afraid of it, and don't worry, etc., etc. She says, you see, because I was able to be open about it with my mother and everything else, I was able to handle it and everything else. And then she goes on to say some kind of psychobabble that if we just be open, then everything's going to be okay. She didn't really explain what's going to be okay. She didn't explain something else. She made it sound like her mother told her something for 1 or 2 sentences, and that's it, etc., etc. Now, if her mother did a thing like that, she would be highly criminally responsible. When a daughter tells you such a thing, that she's having like emotional, mental flirtations of same-gender attraction. So I could assume the father is a tzaddik, Reb Eli Miles, a tzaddik. The uncle, the mother's brother, I know him, Adler, Ben Torah tzaddik. Her father, the grandfather, Adler, tzaddik, the grandfather of Miles, Eli Miles' father, Olav Shalom, who davened in my shul, tzaddik, zizkeit, yakar. And therefore, I can safely assume that Rebbetzin, professor, psychology, or whatever, Mrs. Miles, must have spent a lot of time speaking to her about this, and she selectively, I should say, just picks up and makes it sound like it was very superficial. Her mother told her 1 or 2 sentences, Dina, don't worry, it's okay, and everything else, and that's it. And the whole problem is solved. I'm sure the mother spent a lot of time with her and explained to her what the Torah viewpoint is and everything else. And therefore, I suggested that Miss Miles Shishitsky, that's Flatbush Mama's name, Shishitsky, the famous Chaim Berlin family. If you wanted to do the right thing, you had an opportunity to stand up from these people and say, listen, when this kind of thing happens, if it happens often or not, she knows the statistics better than I, the child, whether it's a boy or a girl who's experiencing a temporary aberration of a flirtation with the same gender attraction, has to be told, listen, it's normal that you start to feel things, you start to think about things, you might consider this, but if it doesn't go away, and if you don't, and it continues to bother you, and it continues to occupy your mind a lot and everything else, please tell us, because we have to go on to the next step. Then we have to do some more serious talking, we have to do perhaps some therapy, we have to go to experts, but you shouldn't think that if you continue to, quote unquote, experience this kind of a feeling. So she could have made a Kiddush Hashem. She could have spoken about the seriousness of this. And that's probably, I'm going to put on a chazaka, that's what Professor Mrs. Miles told her 7th grade daughter, Adina, some 20 years ago, approximately, when she was approached with this. Even though Mrs. Shishitsky, Flatbush Mama, didn't bother to mention this. You understand? But then it gets better. So then there are comments on her page, her Instagram page. So one or two people cursed her out. There's one person that's outraged with her, and somebody even referenced my article in the Jewish press where I wrote district leader or misleading. And I explained the chesroinus in her. Kosher cheeseburgers, ha ha ha. I mean, cheeseburgers, it tastes good. I haven't tasted it yet, ha ha ha. Make light of that. Prancing around with Abby Stein, the first Hasidic transgender, sending out Good Shabbos messages. We have to dialogue. She's telling the teeny booper followers and others who don't have an ounce of hashkafa similar to her. Her followers have even less, and young ones. We have to dialogue with the off the derech people, the gays. The Chazal say, it's not for everybody to dialogue. No, but listen, Mama Shashitsky, she's the mother of us all. She knows a lot better. She knows what's good for us. I'm going to soon show you in areas of politics or in other happenstances her great acumen and her great seichel. Let's be down chus that the mother told her what had to be told, but that's certainly not what she conveyed on the video. Number one. Number two, in the comments, it got so bad that somebody said to her, it sounds like the way you're presenting it, like you're possibly a bisexual. Can you come out and tell us clearly, are you a bisexual, or can you deny that you're bisexual or have bisexual orientation? You hear this is what's going on from this guy, Tzadekis, who a lot of the idiot flit brains out there, and I say it, yes, I say it, idiot, flit brains, whifflets, I say it all. And she could put it on the Instagram. It's Gavaldik. That's what they are. It's airheads. It's people who have a head that's open. It's flitting around. There's no seichel, etc., etc. So people are influenced by her shtusim, unfortunately. And she knows this and she likes this. She is a publicity whore. She'll do anything to get attention, to say anything, etc., etc. And that's why she hired this guy, Jeff Atkins or Daniels or whatever his name is. I forget what it was. And he's an open homosexual who has a partner. I don't know. He does wear a yarmulke. He doesn't wear a yarmulke. One of these kinds of people who's pride. And he writes that he's a political advisor, a consultant in the last race that she ran for district leader. You understand? This is the kind of people she associates with. This is all by design. She wants to attract this. She wants to have this attention, etc. So this person asks, are you a bisexual or not? So instead of answering, chas v'shalom, I'm not, thank God I'm not, and it is a chas v'shalom because we don't want to be al tivyeinu lo lidei nisayin v'lo lidei bizayin. We do not want to have these kinds of challenges. I say often when I'm on a public media, thank God, there for the grace of God goes me. I could have a homosexual attraction. I could be attracted to lower the age of sexual consent to want to have a relationship with a 16-year-old girl, and I thank Hashem that I'm not with that thing. I don't want to have that challenge and have Rahmanis on the people who do. But having Rahmanis and making it into a shita and showing pride and encouraging and smiling and prancing around the neighborhood is too sad. Dialoguing with them, Keilu, teeny boopers and 20-somethings should dialogue with them. This is rishus. This is evil. This is counterintuitive to Torah, mitzvahs, and everything else. So the way she answers that question about are you a bisexual or not? Come out and tell us. Well, it's not so simple. It's a fluid. It's a this. It's a that. She talks in such a way because her leaning over, her open-mindedness. She's so open-minded. Her brains are falling out to appear to be liberal to these things. Every liberal shibboleth to embrace it. So she can't bring herself to say, I am absolutely just attracted to my husband, the opposite gender. I do not have any bisexual thoughts or inclinations. That could be the easiest way to say it. Direct. She doesn't say that because she's playing to her audience. That's why she's a paskudnya. She is a terrible threat to Klal Yisrael. And I want to explain to you how this comes around. There's a tremendous vacuum in our leadership. Our Rabbonim, she posted something on her Instagram site when the people were assassinated and brutally murdered in Pittsburgh. So she put up a post. You know what the post was? F, and she spelled out the F word, anti-Semitism. This was her deep intellectual. This was her contribution to ameliorating the tragedy or addressing the tragedy of Pittsburgh F anti-Semitism. So I have a good friend. And when I posted this on the site, because somebody sent it to me again, and actually they posted it on my site without asking me. And I had them take it off right because I didn't know what it was. And then they told me it's from Flatbush Mama. So I said, then put it clearly that the Olim should say. And then I did a voice note. I let it be on. So somebody told me, a friend of mine, a big Talmid Chacham, and he tells me, you can't say in your voice message that, even referring to her, that you said, that she said F anti-Semitism, but I don't agree with him, and I'm saying it again. I'm a Talmud of Reb Miller, and I am saying it again, and he tells me, why don't you ask Rav Aaron Schechter, Rav David Feinstein, about this or something else? He told me, with all due respect. If they were busy addressing the Flatbush Mama and the things, if they were busy addressing the Shelley Silvers in the past and the voting for the lowlifes and all kinds of chayay, they would have a track record like my late great Rebbe, who could have been their Rebbe chronologically, Rav Avigdor Miller, because Rav Avigdor Miller was the mashgiach, he was a Talmud in Chaim Berlin. So then, okay, they followed Rabbi Miller, they had experience, they were talking about these things. But somebody who has no experience, no track record. There's 200 Rabbanim and Rebbes and Shuls and Mashgichim and the Rosh Yeshivas and Mashpiyim and everybody else, and nobody could find to address this Flatbush Mom. She goes, worse and worse, shmutz and garbage, brainwashing people. So the answer is there's a tremendous vacuum. And when there's a vacuum, anybody, any vacuous person could fill the vacuum. So the tzad hashava between Flatbush Mama and the state of being is, there's a vacuum. She is vacuous. Not that she lacks intelligence, but her hashkafa, she is pre-kindergarten. I don't know, it's aviyah mechalelis. I'm sorry, her father's a tzaddik, her mother, I'm sure is a ehrlich person. The grandparents are zichet tzaddikim also, and she's mechalelis. It's a bush of a cherpa, what it is. She goes, mechayel chayel, and I'm going to be here to report it to you. Because I guarantee you she got a third of the vote the first time, and she's going to go weiter and weiter. She's going to try to take Chaim Deutsch's seat, mark my words. And since Rav Yosef Mizrahi, who is unwise enough, and that's putting it nicely, there's bigger adjectives I could use. He was unwise enough to allow himself to be used to promote her candidacy. She interviewed him, and she said, "What do you say about my long shaitel?" You know, now there are short shaitlach, so it's not so terrible, a long shaitel, and I'm being challenged. And what do you say about homosexual inclinations, Rabbi Mizrahi, and all these cute things that she had him jumping through hoops? And then she plays it, see, I could speak to the biggest kanoi in the neighborhood. Rabbi Mizrahi did not have enough foresight, Teres Hashem Chivas Pesi, to have his wife check out what this perutza is all about, this anti-tznius. I don't know if I should call her Chatzufa for sure, Manuvelis, I don't know if I should call her. I don't want to hurt her family. You see, her family, her brothers, her father, her mother, they're fine people. They're the salt of the earth. What can I do? I can't stand by. Like she said, like Esther said to her, that if it was just this and me and thee, but what can I do? Eicha uchal. How can I be quiet when my moladity, when my nation, when my brothers and sisters are being faced with kloya and with killing? How could, when they're faced with this shmad of what she's doing, how can I be quiet? This is a form of shmad that she's doing. It's a brainwashing for everything. Now, here's the latest stupidity that she did. Dov Hiken came out and he did a tweet that a judge, parents are going through a bit of divorce there in court, so they're fighting about the chinuch of the kids. So the judge ordered that meanwhile 2 Orthodox Jewish kids should be educated in public school. And Hiken said, I get talking, it's a chutzpah and everything else. Flatbush Mama comes out and says, Hiken, you're not a judge. In other words, she is a rabbi. She can tell us what's sneers and what's not, what you're allowed to do, and how to deal with bisexuality, and we should dialogue a case. She's an expert. But Dov Hiken is not allowed to say anything because a judge decided, you understand why she's such a sakana? To make her a leader, a district leader, that she should become a political leader? And and then you'll have one day the Satmar Rebbe and the Square Rebbe will be confident her like the confident Hillary Clinton and Square and Cuomo and Satmar. You understand? This is what will happen. That's why I'm telling you all this bad stuff about her. So she writes, you're not a judge. If the judge decided, the judge knows what's best, etc., etc. You know, maybe we should give a bracha to Flatbush Mama that some judge should tell her, I'm sure that all the yeshivas were very anxious to take her children in when they saw her videos and they saw what she's saying. And I'm sure they'll be even more anxious now. You understand? Maybe some judge should put her children into a public school, chas v'shalom, and then she shouldn't have a right to say anything because she's not a judge. Not chas v'shalom because of divorce, for some other reasons, something. She's going to go too far, and maybe the yeshivas are going to say that you're a bad influence and kick her out, and her kid should have to go to public school. Then maybe she won't be so polite. So why is she doing this for? It's obvious to me why she's doing it, because Dov Heiken had the chutzpah to come out and support her opponent and everything else, and therefore she's burning angry because she's a balas gaiva and she's vacuous, not because of a lack of knowledge, but vacuous nashkaf and everything else. So to get back at Dov Heiken, she curses him out. He's not a judge, but her slip is showing it's an asinine, it's stupid, anti-logical, counterintuitive. You have to be a judge to be able to complain if they're taking two Orthodox children and putting them into a secular environment like a public school, which is sakonis, mamish? Really? Really, flatbush mamish? That's the best you can do? Whoa, bad to worse. L'chaim. Now, I want to mention you have Daniel Rosenthal in Brooklyn. I'm sorry, in Kew Garden Hills and environs. Daniel Rosenthal supported gender. Gender is a tremendous gay and non-discrimination, employment non-discrimination act, which would potentially be elastic enough that it would have a profound effect on same-gender bathrooms, transgendered bathrooms. They can go wherever they want, and all kinds of other schmutz that they could cancel. They could give fines to businesses that don't want to hire these people. And there's already bills from a long time ago. There was a DiNapoli who's running for re-election as the state controller. Supports all kinds of riches. One of the things he did a number of years ago was he introduced, I don't know if a bill or a regulation, that he said that since he controls the pension funds, nobody who refuses to deal to place certain employment type things with the Mishkevei Zacha, so they're not going to get any government contracts, any state pension money to invest in their businesses. Understand? This is who Simcha Eichenstein is bringing into our community now, because Simcha Eichenstein is running unopposed, but he has to post for pictures with Shuma. You understand that Hamadiyah and the Friday's Hamadiyah, and he has to say, "I'm honored to seek the endorsement." Now, why does Simcha Eichenstein, who's running unopposed, have to spend money that he raised from Yidlach to put up signs all over the place and to make a trask? The answer is because he wants to build himself up. He's ambitious. And he has gaiva, and he wants to build himself up quickly. He's going to be a new Frankenstein, he's going to have sara. He's going to officiate over us. We're going to have to come to him as petitioners and grovel and beg him. He's going to be the grace of Kanaka. That's what he's doing now. And he's solidifying his political connections. So Shum is a walking, talking Chil Hashem, a swarmy Jew who's done so many things. In the Kavanaugh thing, just the latest thing that he did, the disgusting things he was doing by Kavanaugh, but he supports every immoral legislation. He's the leader of the low-life Democrats, the most extreme leftist, hilarious. And he has to go and say, "I'm honored." So when I tell you that Simcha Eichenstein, you can't trust him on morality as fast as you can throw him, and that he went with Ezra Friedland at the Corey Johnson's birthday party, wearing his Langer Beckische probably, and the Hasidische, the Levush, and his demeanor and everything else. And it was disgusting. This wasn't when Corey Johnson was already the speaker. He was figuring he's going to go places, so we'll go to the birthday now. It's all whoring. It's all prostituting our values and our God, smiling and taking pictures and everything else. So now he brings DiNapoli into the Frum neighborhood as well. And he was in pictures with DiNapoli way back when DiNapoli was busy strashing all these businesses that they should have to kiss up to the Mishkevei Zohar. Yeah, but everybody, Simcha told me, everybody knew that I'm not. Everybody knew that you're not serious because they knew you're not. But you didn't speak out. And I'm saying again, we are going to be on like scotch tape on Simcha Eichenstein. And watch, he's already done 2 avlis before he even came in. He took pictures, and the stupid Haimi Hamoidia, they felt it was necessary Where is their rabbinic board? I'm calling out my dear friend Rabbi Heschel, Avrami Heschel, Atayra Ayoka, the Kapizhnitzer, Tzaddik, and I mean it seriously, and Mrs. Ruthie Lichtenstein. Where's your rabbinic board of Hamadia? Why did you have to put in a piece of garbage like a picture of the claptrap publicity seeking Simcha Eichenstein with the Swarmy Shuma? The Jewish press in this week is criticizing Schumer and Nadler for something, thankfully, a pre-election. And Hamadia is busy kissing up and putting these pictures in and the article. So Simcha Eichenstein is already showing his colors. And there's no reason he shouldn't stand up, as I said in previous weeks, and he should make a speech, his maiden speech in the assembly. I am going to be proactive, introducing legislation of family values and protecting my community, and I'm going to be a guidepost and a light post and a lighthouse and an example and a role model for all the upstate Republicans and for all devout Catholics and evangelicals. And there are those people in the state Senate to a certain extent, in the Republicans and in the Assembly. And I'm going to be the go-to guy in this. Some people are the go-to guys on environment. Other people are the go-to guys on budgetary matters. Other people are the go-to guys on agriculture. I'm going to be the go-to guy on family values. That's how Simcha can make a Kiddush Hashem. I can bet you anything he's not going to do that, because he's already showing the same thing that he's been doing for years. When he worked for de Blasio, he worked for the Napoli, he worked all the lowlives. With Ezra Friedlander, he was working, and Ezra Friedlander couldn't use and wouldn't use with all the lowlives. What are you attacking Simcha for? No, we'll wait until he's a big, powerful monster. He's a Heikind, and we can do nothing to get him out. The biggest mitzvah is don't vote for Eichenstein. He's unopposed. He's going to be your assemblyman, Daiganish. He doesn't have to have a high vote total. He should have a low vote total. That would be the biggest message to him. That would be the way controlling. Imagine if the Yidden did not vote for Eichenstein. Spread the word. It's late at night. I don't know how many people are listening, but if you don't vote for Eichenstein, you're doing a chesed for Klal Yisrael. You're doing a chesed, you're standing up for Kvod Shamayim, and hopefully you're sending a message to him that we're not going to just tolerate all his kutchin you, muchin you with all the low lives, etc., etc. You know what this is. It's Yehud 11, and you're dealing with a special pre-election, late Thursday night, early Friday morning program. Please take down the hotline number. I give it to you again. It's 641-715-3900, extension 247656. I plead with you to spread this hotline so that other people can hear these programs, and you can be a shutef in the pirsum of this. If there happens to be anybody who is maskim to donate to help me defray the expenses of the program, or to put on advertisement to help defray the expenses, I would really appreciate it. You'll be a shutef in everything that I'm doing. Do not vote for Naomi Levin. Do not vote. She's running against Natalie. You might say, a good Russian Jew, modern Orthodox, we should vote for her. She refused in her one ad, and despite being begged, and I sent her emails, and I sent a shliach to speak to her, she refused to come out and say in any way I'm pro-family values. And she has no chance of winning. So it's a chil Hashem, because by voting for her, we're showing all the politicians we don't care if she studiously avoids any mention of family values. So I'm begging you, do not vote for Naomi Levin. Write in morality if you feel you have to vote for something. Write in morality or leave it blank. Okay? Let's see what else we have over here. Eichenstein. By the way, Donald Trump is doing something positive. He's saying that we're going to make federal regulations across the board. None is transgendered chazarai. A person is who he or she is born as biologically and anatomically, That's who they are. And under this phony shtick that they have in New York City with de Blasio helped pass a bill with Corey, the homosexual activist that that our good friend Josh Melman was kind enough at one point to send me a Rosh Hashanah greetings or something and say, thank you for your Pesach greetings. What are you doing? Thank you for what you're doing for Klal Yisrael. Josh, I love you too. Thank you very much for the good things you're doing in Flatbush Coalition, what you're doing for the Mir Yeshiva, as the chairman, for many things that you do positive for Agudas Yisrael. But the garbage and the Hanifa and everything else, like you send out this tweet when Corey Johnson says, I'm sick. I don't know, was it AIDS? He is HIV positive. So I don't know what that means. And he's wishing all kinds of good wishes for Shalem and everything else, the Chanfarai, the Lekarai. I don't know that this is Pashut. Why don't you ask of Laser Ginsburg? Josh Mailman, why don't you ask of Laser Ginsburg? Why don't you ask of Yankel Melkenbaum? You're so odikis. Why don't you ask Rabbi Eli Brudny? Why don't you ask Rabbi Kaminsky, Rabbi Shapinsky? You're so close to all the handhol of the Mir Yeshiva. You do so much. You're a wonderful Talmud. Why don't you ask them if you're allowed to do this? Do you know, Josh, that there's a chazal that says, Kat chanfonim eino roya penei ashchina? Leckers, sycophants, they will have excuses. We're doing it. We had to send out this tweet to Corey because he does so much for our community. We need gelt and gelt and gelt and gelt and gelt. So we had to do it. So what are you afraid if you're so confident that you're doing the right thing, Josh, Chatzkel Bennett, Leon Goldenberg, and all the rest of you, Lefkowitz? Why don't you ask? Why don't you come in and ask in the Mir Yeshiva? I'll tell you, for the other ones I mentioned, Lefkowitz and Bennett, why don't you go and ask Raphael Cohen? Raphael Cohen, the erstwhile Poisik, the writer of Badei HaShulchan, Azoken B'Yisrael. He's certainly one of the Gedolei Rosh Yeshiva, Gedolei Yisrael for years. Raphael Cohen stood up 12 years ago when the Clinton, or 14 or 16 years ago when the Clinton Monica Lewinsky hearings were going on, and on Yom Kippur, he spoke, how could you consider voting for such a lowlife? So why don't you go, Bennett and Lefkowitz and Yerucham Silber and Ezra Friedlander, haha, and why don't you go and speak and get a tayyum for some of the stuff that you're doing? Why is there a hafkah? Why is it say in everything you have to ask Shalavichiv Yagetzik and Yamloch? When it comes to Chnifa, the Rishoyim, and everything else that Rabbeinu Yonah speaks about how severe it is, that you don't have to ask. You just use your own cycle. You tweet, you take pictures, you smile, you clap back, and come on. Jill Epstein is running for office as a judge. Sounds like such a nice Jewish name. A lot of fools are going to vote for her. The Jewish press endorsed her. I love the Jewish press. They're much better than the other Haredi papers on morality, but she's bad news. Jill went and filled out all kinds of questionnaires from the Gayachs, and she's supported by them. That should tell you, if she's went to them and she's filling out and she's supported by them, it's asur and stupid to vote for Jill Epstein for judge. Okay, the Republican candidate for control, you say DiNapoli is terrible. So what about the Republican candidate? The Republican candidate, I don't know his name, for controller, worked for a bunch of low-life Democrats. He worked for Corey Johnson, and he worked for Spitzer, the disgraced governor who was found with a prostitute who had to resign when Patterson became governor, his lieutenant governor. So this Republican is he favors all the liberal Democratic policies. If not, he wouldn't have been able to work so closely as a campaign consultant for all these lowlifes. And therefore, it's absolutely, let's not be stupid, it's absolutely also to vote for him. Some person, El Gromes, I don't know. Anyhow, Letitia James, I'm sorry. Letitia James, they're putting up this big, Letitia James, you know why they see her as a black woman? and she's already now running on the Democratic ticket of a statewide office as Attorney General. So chances are when Coleman moves on, she's going to be in a very high position, and she's going to undoubtedly run for governor. So all the Hasidim, you see, we are so bright, and we do it all for the community. We don't do it for personal self-aggrandizement. We don't like to go to all these places where they are now serving glatt kosher food. You can be sure they will be serving glatt kosher at her victory night celebration. And you will see in the videos, the pictures on the flash across the TV screen, you will see the Hasidim stuffing their faces with the kosher pastrami, you know, and being so happy and celebratory with all the rest of the Eine Yehudim. And we are doing it all not for ourselves. Lo iluni Hashem leikaini. We have to invest. We are very wise, just like Ezra Friedlander and Simcha Eichenstein saw with great foresight that Corey, the homosexual activist journalist Johnson, who writes that in the 1920, in the 2020, when he runs for mayor of New York, he's going to have one of his credos that's going to say F this or F that. Is I'm a novel, and he gives interviews to the New Yorker magazine on the in-depth thing, and he speaks about how hard it is for him to hook up with sexual partners. Yeah, I'm saying this schmutz because that's the lowlife that Josh Melman is busy tweeting about. And they're all busy comforting with pictures and everything else, with big thank you ads for what he did, putting it into the Jewish newspapers. Yes. Ad Mosai. So the Lubavitch will say, Ad Mosai, the Lubavitch is going to count for all these low lives. Ad Mosai that. Why don't you go into the oil and send a fax to the Rebbe and ask him if he wants to give a few dollars for the controllers, the candidates, and let's see if the Rebbe gives, and you have to support him. If he doesn't give dollars to him, what do you have to support him for? Yeah? Because, the Rebbe's here with us now, so why don't you ask him? Anyhow. So, everybody's kissing up to Letitia James. It's also goma to vote for her. She's terrible. She's extreme leftist, and she's going to go after the town clerk as Attorney General, that courageous town clerk, devout Christian, who said, I'm sorry, I can't marry you, to the upstate homosexual couple, but you can go right next is another town clerk who'll be happy to marry you. No, we're going to go after her. We're going to try to cancel her and beat her up on her and everything else. She already lost her job, but no. It's an vindictive person. This is Letitia James you're going to go vote for. When that Eino Yehudi makes a Kiddush Hashem, she stands up for her God and her values, unfortunately, much more than we stand up for our God. Excuse me for getting a little upset. Now go vote for Letitia James. Daniel Rosenthal didn't vote on defunding government funding for abortions except in cases of rape and incest. That means there was an amendment to the health law having to do with abortion that the government would not pay for any abortions except in cases of rape and incest. Why do our taxpayer dollars have to pay for Ritzichas or Bun, for murder of babies, which is a capital offense according to the Torah, codified by Rabbi Yishmael in the Gemara? Shefach dam odom ba'odom. What's an odom ba'odom? It's a fetus. It's inside a man, so it's called feticide. And if you do feticide, yamus, you're gonna die. I'm sorry, domi yishafik. You should die, and it's codified by the Ram La'alacha. So a ben is chayav misa for this. So it's good when they're introducing an amendment on this. So Daniel Rosenthal was done Erev Pesach. Dov Heiken wasn't around, so he didn't vote. He had better things to do. He had one of the worst attendance records in the assembly. He was safely ensconced there. So what did he have to do? He came and went as he pleased. He did what he wanted. He voted for what he wanted, etc., etc. That's when I'm afraid Simcha Eichenstein is going to become another Shelley Silver, Michael Toivus. Daniel Rosenthal didn't vote for this bill. So you say maybe he wasn't there. Maybe he drove back to Queens. It was Erev Pesach. But afterwards, when they had the general vote on the health bill, he voted for it. You understand? Even though it has money for abortion and everything else. So he was there, but he couldn't do a pro-life vote. And he supports gender, which is terrible. It will make transgenders be able to go into any bathroom they want. And he supports all kinds of other garbage. It's a sin to vote for Daniel Rosenthal. I don't care how many hats he wears when he goes to the conventions, the glad hand and the glad back and shake hands. Where is Joel Schoenfeld, Rabbi Joel Schoenfeld, and Rabbi Yaakov Menken, and Rabbi Gordimer, and Reb Dov Fish, the heads of the 1,000 rabbi strong Jewish Values Coalition? How come they don't get put up this is in your backyard, Daniel Rosenthal? Why don't you put out a biblical scorecard right now, Rabbi Schoenfeld, this Shabbos? Why don't you have it announced in shul by all your rabbis in the district? The shame of Daniel Rosenthal. Teach him a shtickle lesson. People shouldn't vote for him. So where's the Jewish coalition, the Values Coalition? It's very good when it's far afield. You can deal with Kavanaugh. You can deal with other things. The baker. You can have Menken giving a speech, Rabbi Menken, about the baker and how great he was, that he's doing it. But when it comes to you, Jewish Values Coalition, I call upon you again. You should be doing a biblical scorecard. Why are we worse than the Christian Coalition adherents and millions of other Christians that their organizations send out biblical scorecards so they know how to vote? Why, if you're the Values Coalition, much more important than supporting Trump and Kavanaugh, more important is putting out biblical scorecards and putting out questionnaires that you, the American Jewish, whatever you call yourself, Coalition for Jewish Values, should put out, that every politician should know. They get a questionnaire from Lambda, from the gay organization. They get it from the Sierra Club, from the environmentalists. They get questionnaires from National Rifle Association, NRA. Why don't they get questionnaires from Agudas Yisrael, from OU, from RCA, from Young Israel? But most of all, for the organization was created officially for values, the Jewish Values Coalition, the Coalition of Jewish Values, whatever they call themselves. Why are you not doing? Because you were created for that. It's a much bigger chasaron. Now, I hope to call up Rabbi Schoenfeld, believe that I have to just remember. I'm not trying to avoid him. I recently spoke face-to-face with Reb David Zweibel and complained to him. I recently spoke on the phone. I got a call back after 2 phone calls and messages that I was also cursing him out on the radio, criticizing him, meaning I got a call and I had it out with Chairman Mike Long, who I know for 40 years. And I wasn't satisfied with his answers, and I let him know that. We agreed to disagree, but I don't do it behind the back, and I'm going to tell Rabbi Joel Schoenfeld exactly what I feel, what he should be doing. He does have a good feel on the Mishkav Zacha. So let's see what he's going to do now. Now he's between a rock and a hard place. Because if the Values Coalition, the Jewish Values Coalition, does not come out in the future and do biblical scorecards and questionnaires, then they're phonies and hypocrites. They draw the line on what's politically safe. They will not be politically incorrect. And the heck with Hashem, right? Chas v'shalom. The heck with the biblical values in the Torah. We don't do that. That's going to be too uncomfortable. It's too close to home to criticize Daniel Rosenfeld, to let people know what he's doing. Chas v'shalom, that's in our backyard. Better speak about Kavanaugh and Trump and to go fly out to some other state to compliment the baker. You understand? Very nice. Congresswoman Grace Ming, chas v'shalom, to vote for her. She voted against stopping assisted suicide in Washington, D.C. They wanted an outdoor assisted suicide in Washington, D.C. Grace Ming voted against it, which means she's pro-assisted suicide. Why should anybody in Queens, Rabbi Schoenfeld, Rabbi Peretz Steinberg, Rabbi Noach Olbaum, Rabbi Schwartz of the Vad of Queens, rabbis, why should anybody vote for Grace Ming? Why shouldn't they be told what this chatzufa is doing? Back in Flatbush, Rodney, whatever her name is, Bicolate or whatever her name is, from the district, the Flatbush Midwest district, Rodney Bichetti or something like that. Every single shmutz bill she votes for, and for a certain amount of time, maybe continue, she has a rainbow flag on her desks. She's terrible. Do not vote for her. What about her opponent? He's running a token race. But since we don't know, wouldn't it be stupid to vote for him if he actually supports chaos and abortion and everything else? So unless you can find out, do a write-in or skip it. Stephen Simowitz and Oisov, you shouldn't get our votes. That's the way you could signal to these mamzerim. Rabbi Levin, if you want a signal, we vote for the other person. That's a bigger signal. No. I explained to you, because all that can contribute to people saying there's nothing wrong with endorsing a gay marriage and abortion. Because if as long as you're the lesser of two evils, so everybody from the conservative Republicans will start to do that openly now. It's much easier for them. So we dare not do that. Okay, I told you you shouldn't vote for Simcha Eichenstein. He's still going to get in. You don't have to worry. Why should he get a high vote total? For dancing around the Frum community in pictures Hamadir with Shuma and saying, I'm honored. You're honored, Shuma. Tell me you're honored. Somebody who's an anti-Semite. He's only anti-God's Torah values. He's not an anti-Semite, although he made a deal that he'll vote against the Iran deal. But if he's the deciding vote, then all of a sudden he'll go over to Obama. That was the inside deal, I think, with Shuma. You understand? So Shuma, who's anti-God values and is a leader of the whole Democrat contingent in the Senate, and he's always planning strategies for all this schmutz and garbage, that's who Simcha Eichenstein is honored by. Understand? And Hamadia, the Chamorim at Hamadia had to publish this. Very important, because they're even afraid. Now Simcha Eichenstein put it out, so they got to already kiss up to him because he's in the next assembly. Instead of Simcha Eichenstein having to figure out answers to questions, perceptive questions by Avrami Herschel, Rav Avram Herschel Shlita, and Rabbi Yochanan Dunn, and ask hard-hitting questions. What are you going to do to be a lightning rod? That they won't do in the Hamadiyah paper. They ask tough questions to him, to interview him. No. You don't think they're going to have to give din v'cheshbon when the Gemara says din is, and the etzemaisa cheshbon is what they should have done. They could have done the ripple effects of concentric circles. Believe me, all of them, the Satma, Skver, Aguda, OU, everything. I'm not calling them out. I don't want to give them clawless. I'm telling you what's going to happen. We're maminim. You think they're they're stupid. They don't understand cause and effect. Having a newspaper achrayas, being the head of a Moised achrayas, being the head of a Hasidus achrayas, that's what it's all about, Rabbi Sai. And there's enough place in Gehenim and on the way to Gehenim and in the Cheshbon land for all of us. And I'm a big hypocrite. I'm an Avari and I'm a lowlife. But at least publicly I put on a gestel. It says, Yilba Shchorim v'yelchem makamakash ein ish makiredu. Do the Aver in private. And in public, speak righteousness, dress righteousness, do righteous. At least I do that. But Satma and Skver and OU and the other Chanfonim, Chatzkel Bennett. Chatzkel Bennett wrote an article. He's an Aguda hack/flack. You're very close to Aguda, you understand. So when you read the article by Chatzkel Bennett, it was vetted, so to speak, or approved one way, directly or indirectly. Maybe he has license now. He doesn't have to be vetted by the Zweibels and the other knackers in Aguda. So he's representing Gedol Yisrael. And he writes in the primary, in an op-ed piece, in idea, we have to vote for Cuomo because Cynthia Nixon is to the left of Cuomo. So in other words, he's indicating by implication, it's the lesser of two evils argument. So, Chatzkel, I explained why the lesser of two evils argument doesn't make sense. Because if you vote for the lesser of two evils, then that's a signal that you're making an accommodation with evil. And therefore, other people can feel we can be evil and still get your vote. So that's one reason that it's jackassery to say it. But I want to ask you, L'shitascha Chatzkel Bennett, that you can vote for the lesser of two evils. So now Cuomo Molinaro. Molinaro is conservative on many issues that Cuomo is not. So if it's the lesser of two evils, then you as the Agudis, you should be voting for the one who's closer to Hashem's values, lesser of two evils, Molinaro, right? But you know and I know that you're a totally Cuomo and you're kissing up to Cuomo because he's going to be the next governor and he's going to run for president and everything else. And you got to keep your bed buttered, like Ezra Friedlander and with Simcha Eichenstein and planning the future, the Corey Johnson. You understand? So I bet you don't see a bunch of hypocrites. When it suits you, you use the argument lesser of two evils. But now by Cuomo, Chatzkel Bennett, you hypocrite, you're not going to say lesser of two evils, right? Why don't you answer me? Why don't you come on my radio program and debate me? Chatzkel, Leon Goldenberg, Shmuel Lefkowitz, Oberlander, the whole pack of you, with 98% of my brain tied behind Rosh Limbaugh's back, I welcome you to come on for a debate. Yeah, that'll be the day. So you tell me, why can't, listen to me, You want to make a Kiddush Hashem? Here's the number. Here's Agudas Yisrael's number. 212-797-9000. Again, Agudas telephone is 212-797-9000. The extension of Rabbi David Zweibel, 210. Call after hours. If you're ashamed to call and tell the secretary during business hours, call after hours at midnight. Nobody's there. And just leave a message. If Rabbi Zweibel would get 50 messages like this, it would accomplish a lot. It would be a Kiddush Hashem, accomplish a lot. Say, Rabbi Zweibel, how come Aguda is keeping us in the dark and they're not giving us a biblical scorecard? Why does not Agudas Yisrael put out questionnaires to the politicians on the moral issues? Why does the Christian Coalition do it? Why does American Family Association do it? Why does other organizations, New York Constitutional Freedom, do it? Why doesn't Aguda do it? And you think the politicians, Rabbi Zweibel, don't know how, wink, wink, blink, blink, you want to deliver block votes like Satan Square, Aguda, without having the Oilim Goyim. The asses are jackasses. Chamarezach will keep them in the dark, like Stephen Solar wrote the year I ran against him in the political handbook he wrote. I'm a big expert in foreign policy, and my people think Zimbabwe, the people in my district are so ignorant, they think Zimbabwe is the name of a Haagen-Dazs flavor of ice cream. What's the difference between the back of the hand and the dismissiveness of Solars and the dismissiveness of Agudas Yisrael, OU, and Young Israel, and the newspapers, the Haredi newspapers, the Orthodox newspapers, that all of them refuse to give questionnaires to all the politicians and publish the results? That would make the politicians much more wary, W-A-R-Y. They would be much more reluctant to just vote for all the shmutz because they see the Haimes are coming off their reservation and the Jews take care. So maybe after 120 years, Rabbi Zweibel and the Agudas Yisrael and the Matzah Gedolah Torah are going to have to give a din v'cheshbon for why they didn't do the biblical scorecards. Remember, Reb Moshe Feinstein, by the way, in this week's Jewish Press, I have the whole thing with Reb Moshe. I speak about the letter. They didn't write it, the article in the Jewish Press. They cut this out. I was the catalyst for the letter that you see in this week's Jewish Press is reproduced. Moshe was hellfire to fight against the Mishkav Zach, and he said, you should go with your body to the city all the days of the hearings to fight it. Kal v'chomer, he would let you vote for a moma-more, the lesser of two evils, to signal to all the conservatives and all the Republicans throughout the state of New York, it's a done deal with gay marriage and schmutz, and you can vote for the lesser of two evils, and don't worry, we're not going to hold it against you, etc., etc. Yeah. Understand? This is what's going on. But I want to mention again, on Monday night at 1 o'clock in the morning on 620 a.m. radio, and it'll be archived on the rabbi.zone, and it'll be archived on our hotline number, which is 641-715-3900, extension 247656. We're going to have another special pre-election program with lots more information and the latest news. We didn't have a chance to discuss the Pittsburgh situation here. I want to discuss the statements that Rabbi Aderet made, and then what Rabbi Farner spoke about, on Torah Anytime, I think, or something, and what Rabbi Eish Kodesh spoke about, Rabbi Weinberg Eish Kodesh, the Mashgiach and YU, and the very prominent Bal Machshava. I'm a big fan of his Machshava, and he spoke out very strongly against Rabbi Adair without mentioning his name, very, very strongly, for a 12-minute drasha. And I'd like to address the flaws in or possible lack or flaws or shortcomings in each one of these three rabbis. And we're saving that. That's going to be, God willing, if I remember, that's going to be on Monday evening, Tuesday morning, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning. And you can get it if you don't stay up late. You can check it out on rabbi.zone, because now that I'm good with this tweets and everything else, we're all allowed to go on the internet. Okay? Molinaro is opposed to extreme abortions, but he supports the Gayach stuff. Okay? Now, in the Seagate, Brighton Beach area, with that area, Coney Island, Stephen Saperstein, the Republican, is running for Senate in Seagate for New York State Senate, and he blasted Chaim Deutsch 6 months afterwards when Chaim Deutsch didn't want to vote to outlaw therapy, conversion therapy for people who want their children or adults to possibly deal with their inclination towards same gender attraction. So that's what Saperstein, the Republican, is you're going to go vote for this lowlife in Seagate? Now, the one who's the Democrat, it's an open seat, the Democrat, because the last holder of the seat is in prison now, I think. The Democrat there is, she started a gay organization. So you don't want to vote for either of them. And the Working Party candidate might be the least of the evils, but since we don't know what the Working Party candidate stands for, I wouldn't advise you to vote for anyone unless you check out. You have to assume that people are lowlifes, and that's the way it is. Now, if Chas v'Shalom, you vote for this Republican lowlife Saperstein, and eventually he builds up, he gets high vote totals, he's going to use it to build up his powerful, and then he might run for Deutsche seat when his term with Deutsche term limited out, which is the end of the next term. So it might be we'll find Steven Saperstein, the Republican, against Flatbush Mama, the Democrat. Two gefährliche, vacuous, evil, they're supporters of evil. Yes, she's what's transgendered and darling, that's evil. That's evil. She supports the judge in putting kids into public school. That's evil. So Flatbush Mama now has the distinction that she is proactively supporting evil. Okay? What else? The Chaim Deutsch of the city council said that they want to introduce a bill that the New York Police Department Hate Crimes Task Force, in order to educate youth about the impact of bigotry and hateful symbols, they should require the district attorney to report to city council the motivations of all the hate crime perpetrators. Chaim Deutsch is very nice because you were upset that a guy was beaten down by an Arab who jumped out of a car service thing or something like that, and he hurt the Jews. But it's like trying to kill a mosquito with an elephant gun. The elephant gun scatters chaparral all over the place. Okay, so this is going to be used. This bill that you're introducing is going to be used to build up the aspects of the hate crimes of the anti-gay and stuff like that, anti-homosexual, and that's going to be used to our detriment. So the question is, in Golas, when there's anti-Semitism, is it worthwhile to make a bill crafted that's going to have to include all kinds of stuff that's going to augur to the advantage of the Mishkevei Zachar, and to get the police department involved, in effect, furthering the agenda and looking at anything that expresses any reservations about the Mishkevei Zachar as potentially hate and all this kind of stuff with statistics. So, Chaim Deutsch, you haven't thought this thing through like many other things. You're a nice, sweet guy, but you didn't think things through. You throw things through and you don't care. Either way, it's not very good. It doesn't reflect nicely. And Chaim, I hope you don't pass these bills. Not good, okay? By the way, Curious Joel is having one of the most important races. It's an open seat now because the guy Larson or whoever retired. And the Democrat and the Republican, we know for sure the Democrats, bad news. The Republican, we don't know 100%, but we know this. The Curious Joel might be the most important race because it's by a vote or two in the state Senate. And if the state Senate becomes Democrat, remember, Simcha Feld was the one vote in the state Senate. And Simcha, if it becomes Democrat, because they get one or two more people to vote Democrat in the state Senate, they take over the governorship, the assembly, and the state Senate. There's 20 immoral bills that will be tremendously bad that will be passed in the first year. Gender bills and abortion bills that a teacher will be able to go into a Beis Yaakov and tell the girls, I had an abortion, explain you won't be able to discriminate against her by telling her to shut up because she's teaching English, and all kinds of other horrific bills which transcend the bathrooms and everything else. So the people, the word should go out. Hashem is showing that the ones who are going to decide on al tzadikim al chasidim, that same place where the Cuomo just visited. Who knows if Cuomo, who desperately was angry at Felder and wanted to drum out Felder and run a primary against him because he wasn't kissing up to the Democrats, who knows if Cuomo didn't speak to Satmar about voting for the Democrat state senator? Who knows what kind of deal they cut and why he brought his check writer, the head of the budget, to write checks. You understand? Mamish Eslan Zaina. So we have to be very careful. We have to beg the Kiryas Yisrael people that everybody en masse should vote for the Republican, because it's important. We're desperate that the Republicans should maintain control of the state Senate, even if there's shtickle oisvarfen. We need them to control it, because if not, it's going to become increasingly impossible to live in New York. This is Rabbi Yehuda Levin. Our next program is not Thursday evening. Our next program is Monday night, Tuesday morning from 1 to 2 in the morning. Please spread the word about the program, rabbi.zone. It's archived on the hotline. We're giving you the number many times. And until then, a guten Tamid, a guten Shabbos, all the best. Thank you for listening.